What's up, guys? The record we're cracking open today is definitely not the lighthearted fable you heard in Sunday school. This is the story of humanity getting booted from the Creator's perfectly designed system, facing a brutal environmental reality check for the very first time. And honestly, it's a cosmic-level disaster where an irreversible error, the permanent shutdown of biological life, corrupted a flawless world. After the massive curtain of light closed, and the cherubim with their flaming swords permanently firewalled the entrance to Eden. For the first humans, forcibly ejected from the Creator's sanctuary, all that was left was an endless, brutally unforgiving wasteland just waiting to swallow them whole. East of Eden, this uncharted land, covered in a thick, damp fog, was absolutely ruthless. The ground just constantly spawned razor-sharp thorns and bizarre thistles, and Adam and Eve's physical limits were tested every single day. They had to grind until salty sweat dripped from their brows just to keep their HP bars from hitting zero. But if you dive into the hyper-detailed records of the Book of Jubilees, an obscure ancient text, you'll find that Cain and Abel weren't the only ones to set foot in this hostile wasteland. Rendered alongside the eldest son, Cain, was his twin sister Awan, and spawning in with the second son, Abel, was his twin sister Azura. These early humans started hacking their way through the heavy mechanics of Mother Nature, each in their own way. Cain became a farmer, literally tearing into the barren, dusty soil, stubbornly forcing crops to yield. He was a guy hardwired to control and dominate his environment. On the flip side, Abel became a flexible shepherd, traversing the green pastures and syncing his rhythm to the breathing and body temps of his flock. Now guys, this isn't just a simple career difference. This is the exact, monumental branching point of two massive civilization engines, settled agriculture and nomadic pastoralism, that would eventually drive human history into some massive friction. Time ticked on, and on a cool evening when the orbits of the sun and moon hit a specific cycle, ancient texts describe this as a massive, high-stakes ritualistic moment where they had to prove their existential value and offer up their first harvest to the Creator. Beneath a sheer, ashen cliff, the two brothers started building their respective altars. In the thick darkness, the flickering torches dramatically highlighted their completely opposite expressions. Let's check out a chilling detail hidden in the Midrash Rabbah, an ancient Jewish text. What Cain uploaded to his stone altar wasn't some lush, perfect first harvest. He half-heartedly tossed up some charred flax seeds and bug-eaten husks that he barely scraped together from the barren dirt. The sense of duty to the Creator was there, but the actual reverence? Completely offline. Abel, however, was built different. He selected the most blindingly white, flawless firstborn from his flock. He carefully separated the richest essence of life and reverently offered it on the altar. The moment the ritual booted up, the atmospheric pressure suddenly spiked, and the sky's air currents started warping in a totally surreal way. Without any warning, a massive, blinding pillar of fire sliced the sky in two and completely swallowed Abel's altar. The extreme heat instantly atomized the offering, sending a thick column of smoke shooting straight up, and that divine, overwhelming beam of light basically deleted every shadow on the plains. The sky had flawlessly absorbed Abel's reverence, zero packet loss. But Cain's altar? Eerily silent, just cooling down in the chilly night breeze. In that heavy silence, the faint, ashen smoke rising from Cain's offering couldn't even reach the sky. It got violently snapped by a fierce downdraft and slammed right into Cain's face. It was the very first explicit request denied log handed down to humanity by the Creator.
Why does my offering, soaked in my own sweat, just scatter in the dust, while his altar gets fire from the sky?
Cain's facial muscles contorted like they were breaking physics. Thick veins popped out, and his eyes just sank into the abyss. That's when the invisible, massive order of the universe fired back a warning in a heavy, echoing wave.
Why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? Sin is crouching at your door. You must rule over it.
It was a chilling, absolute rule set from the Almighty. But even this sacred warning couldn't penetrate Cain's soul, which was already burning up with humiliation. His wounded ego hard-coded itself into blind hatred, and deep within his source code, a fatal error was multiplying way beyond control. A few days later, right at high noon when the sun was maxing out the shadows across the earth, Cain dragged Abel out to a deep, totally isolated wasteland. The Targum Jonathan, an ancient Aramaic translation, actually testifies that this desolate field wasn't just a spot for a fistfight, it was the first ever Colosseum for a hardcore philosophical clash between the brothers.
Listen to me, Abel. There is no justice in this world. There's no reward in the afterlife. And there is no judge who fairly evaluates the universe. The Creator's mercy is completely biased.
No, brother. There is an absolute order to this world, and judgment for our actions is guaranteed. Your offering was rejected for one reason only. Your core intentions were misaligned.
Ouch. A brutally accurate fact check. That one sentence completely shattered the last firewall of logic left in Cain's brain. Cain's eyes went completely bloodshot. Having completely lost it, he grabbed a massive chunk of granite rolling around on the ground. Keep in mind, guys, this is an era in human history where literally no one even grasped the concept of permanently halting another person's biological functions. Even Cain didn't know the proper mechanics to shut down his opponent. His muscles bulged, and the arm holding that massive rock sliced through the air. With a massive shockwave that tore the air, an absolutely physics-breaking amount of pressure violently collided. The heavy, sickening crunch of a solid skeletal structure collapsing literally shattered the primal silence. Abel's eyes went wide with indescribable shock. That right there was the face of the very first human to ever experience a fatal hardware crash. According to Midrash records, since Cain didn't actually know where the critical hitboxes were, he just spammed heavy attacks over and over. Finally, Abel's body just went limp and collapsed onto the earth. The hot essence of life spilled uncontrollably over the pristine, untouched soil. It was the very first time the primordial earth had ever absorbed the trace of its own kind. Ancient lore says the earth outright rejected this alien liquid, vibrating wildly, and that the fluid couldn't even seep into the ground. It just sat there, trembling like red crystals on the leaves and rocks. That was the moment the universe's source code got its first fatal crack. Piercing through a suffocating silence, the Creator's chilling voice vibrated the atmosphere and heavily dominated the empty space.
Cain, where is Abel your brother?
Cain desperately tried to hide the crushing pressure. He let out a dry, forced laugh and arrogantly fired back at the sky.
I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?
Instantly, the atmospheric pressure skyrocketed, and an invisible, massive force slammed Cain's entire body onto the ground.
What have you done? The signature of your brother's life is crying out to me from the ground. Since the earth has opened its mouth to receive your brother's fluid from your hand, when you work the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth.
The second that sentence dropped, the soil holding those red traces rapidly mutated. The vibrant dirt hardened into a dead gray, and the plants basically went into defense mode, bristling with thorns and completely rejecting his access. Swept up in total cosmic isolation, Cain cried out in fear. So, the Almighty hard-coded an overwhelming divine mark onto his forehead. This glowing character was a dual-purpose tag, an impenetrable shield so no one could touch him, but also a permanent ban mark, signaling forever that he had corrupted the system. Other traditions even claim a massive, pitch-black hound spawned right then to permanently monitor Cain as he wandered. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve finally arrived at Abel's cold, lifeless frame. Faced with the permanent shutdown of life, a glitch they were witnessing for the literal first time, they completely broke down in despair. As they wandered around, totally clueless on how to process a physical body, a black raven flew over to them. Now that the lore is laid out, let's look at this through the lens of modern archaeology. The anthropology world actually translates the clash between Cain and Abel as a macro-level turf war between farmers and nomads during the ancient Neolithic Revolution. And facts? Early ruins like the Ko-Jja cave literally have skulls with physical blunt force trauma, proving that interhuman survival (PvP) was absolutely a thing. French philosopher René Girard breaks this down as the ultimate prototype of the scapegoat mechanism, a glitch driven by our fundamental deficit, our desperate craving for validation from others. All right, let's do a quick translation of this brutal incident into STEM language. To one-shot a solid skeletal frame requires massive kinetic energy. If Cain generated that much DPS with just a random rock and 0 proper tools, dude was already overclocking, completely defying physics. And the Earth rejecting the liquid? That's literally just hemoglobin oxidizing and gelling up in the hot atmosphere. Myths love to dress it up, but it was basically just moisture evaporating under the blazing sun. What can I say? The system was pretty buggy to begin with. Hey, I told you I'm an engineering major.